To everybody, wherever you are. It's our pleasure to welcome you to the UIA inaugural webinar of the second edition of the UIA Award for Innovation in Architectural Education. It's organized, as you know, jointly by the UIA Architectural Education Commission and Sustainable Development Goals Commission. Actually, the two commissions are organizing this year's award as well as the webinar with the special focus on innovation in the integration of sustainable development goals in architectural education. I'm Iman Gawad. I'm a professor of sustainable architecture at the Fine Arts Faculty, Cairo, Egypt, and I'm also the co-director of the UN SDG Commission in the UIA. It's my pleasure to moderate this session today. The award, just a brief about the award. The award was established in 2019 to celebrate the multifaceted nature of innovation across the boundaries of cultures, geographies, and to promote inspiring pedagogical practices that contribute to the creation of sustainable environments. Actually, it's open to colleagues, schools, departments, or programs of architecture worldwide. While the second edition of the UIA Award for Innovation in Architectural Education still recognizes excellence in architectural and urban design education, this year it is focusing on the UN SDGs across the 5 UIA regions. Submissions deadline to the UIA online platform is on the 30th of January, and the announcement of results is expected on the 17th of April. You can also find more details on this edition of the award on the UIA website. Allow me at the beginning to introduce the order of the words and presentation. We allocated 15 minutes for every presentation, followed by 5 to 10 minutes questions or comments. And we're happy to host a number of distinguished guests as follows. We were supposed to open the webinar with a word from the UIA President, Jose Luis Cortez, but unfortunately, due to his several travels at present, he will follow us later. We have also the honor of the presence of Professor Anna Rubbo, who will reflect on the best practices examples related to the award topic. We also have Professor Ashraf Salama, who is the EDUCOM co-director. He will describe briefly the previous award and introduce this edition of the award as well. We have two winners from the last year's award. The first is Professor Elizabeth M. Golden. She's a professor at the Department of Architecture, College of Built Environment at the University of Washington, Seattle, USA. She will focus on the seminar class that she won the prize for last year on the traditional building methods, new adaptations. Secondly, we have the second award-winning Professor Song Yao from the School of Architecture, Tsinghua University, China. And last but not least, Professor Ilaria Valente. She's the Vice President of the EAAE, the European Association for Architectural Education, which will describe the action plan for the integration of the SDGs within their plans. I would like to invite the first presenter, Professor Anna Rubbo. But before listening to her presentation, I would like to introduce her bio. All the bios that from our presenters are available on the UIA site. Prior to joining the Center for Sustainable Development Architecture on the Climate School, Columbia University, Anna taught architecture at the University of Sydney. She's a member of UN Millennium Project Task Force on improving the lives of slum dwellers. She went to the lead of Global Studio, an action research project with a social justice agenda to promote a people as partner model for urban professionals. I invite Professor Anna to begin her presentation. Professor Anna, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Iman, and it's a pleasure to take part in this session. I think this is an inspired award, and I'm just trying to share my screen. Is it coming up? Ooh, we practiced this. Sorry. No, sorry. Here we go. Here we go. Okay. So, is that fine?
Yes.
That's good. Okay. Well, a real pleasure to talk to the topic of this award, which I think is a very inspired award. And I wanted to start off with some questions, which were the core question of innovation. I mean, what exactly is innovation? And so I started looking up some definitions, and I found a rather stodgy one from the Cambridge Dictionary, which is a new idea or a method. What appealed to me much more was the notion of innovation as the process of creating value by applying new solutions, novel solutions to, sorry, I'm just going to have to hide my self view. It's showing my screen. Okay, there we go. To applying novel solutions to meaningful projects. So what is innovation in architectural education? So if we take what has been said here, which is about creating value. So the question is for who and what and how? And is it for the people, the planet, next gen professionals? Novel solutions. Is this out of the box thinking? And does this address questions of inclusion, question of making resilient communities, meaningful problems around inequality or climate change? And are these environmental, social, or the economic impacts of design? And I would like you, the viewers, to think about what are your architectural education innovation priorities? Because I think this word innovation is used a lot, and I think it's really important to think about what exactly you mean by innovation. So the best I can do to contribute to this webinar is to talk about my attempts at innovation in architectural education. I really have no authority to speak about anything else than things that I have tried to do, and I emphasize the notion of attempts. So I'm going to talk briefly to 4 different attempts. 3 have been more or less completed. The 4th is in the making. So I'm going to start first with the Global Studio, which went from 2005 to 12, a 4-city project attracting a huge number of students and communities and disciplines from around the world. Then I'm going to go on and talk a little bit about the People Building Better Cities, a traveling exhibition that we did in 10 countries and 18 cities. After that, I'm going to mention briefly the 2019 Still Going project, which was about accelerating the SDGs and the local project challenge. And I want to finish up with the project in the making, well, I hope it's in the making, called the SDGs Local Studio. And in order to talk about this, I think it's terribly important to think about, why one does what one does and where does an idea come from. And so I was very fortunate to be part of a UN Millennium Project from 2002 to 4. And I was on a task force, which was number 8, improving the lives of slum dwellers. And so over 2 years, with a group of 20 people, we visited various slums and learned a tremendous amount about listening to what were the issues. Also, it was such a privilege to be part of a task force that had representatives from slum dweller organizations and a very interdisciplinary membership. So we've gone past the MDGs. That was to try and help the MDGs to get into place, the Millennium Development Goals. And now, of course, since 2015, we have the SDGs. And I think the SDGs and the New Urban Agenda overall encourage interdisciplinary approaches in design. And I think they expand the parameters for designers. So they do, I think, provide innovation opportunities. Just a little bit about both the SDGs and the New Urban Agenda. I think we all know that most countries signed on to both, that there are many targets. There's 17 SDGs and 169 targets. And if we start to think what goals matter most to designers, is it 11? Is it 13? Is it 10? Is it 16? Is it 3? What is it? And then, of course, then there's the New Urban Agenda, which is the document produced by UN Habitat. And this supports Goal 11, make cities inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable. And it helps support that goal. And I think it's also very important to remember that Goal 11 was a hard one to win. It was only through the efforts of a huge number of people that Goal 11 made it into the SDGs. So let's now just take a little bit of a look at goal 11. And what I think is so interesting is that once you start to look at the goal, sustainable cities and communities, you look at the various bits to it from 11.1 right through to the bottom at 11.c. And then if you start drawing some lines between the other goals, you see that there's innovation opportunities that exist in connecting and addressing various SDGs. And I think that's a really important thing to remember as you try to think about this award in terms of the SDGs. So I'm going to go a little bit into these projects that I have done and to try and reflect on what I think were their innovative aspects. And I'm going back to that definition of what innovation means around meaningful problems, around novel solutions, and about creating value. So the Global Studio, which went over 7 years and did its best work and most of its work in townships in Johannesburg and South Africa. And I think it addressed a meaningful problem, which was urban professionals don't listen. And in fact, that was what came out of my being part of that Millennium Development Goal Task Force. What I heard in all the slums that we went to visit was that the urban professionals don't listen. Now that's a pretty damning critique. So it seemed to me, if we as educators could try and find a way of addressing that problem. So that's what the Global Studio was about, was trying to address the urban professionals don't listen problem. And there's much information online about this project because it was a long and complicated one. But I've highlighted under each of these projects what I think was some of the innovation issues. Deals with questions about reciprocity. When you work with communities, you give something and they give you a lot, how do you reciprocate? It takes up issues of decolonization, because very often when you're dealing with the urban poor, the questions about a colonized state are absolutely primary. It focused really on innovation, on listening as absolutely crucial. They need to earn trust, enormously important. And finally, to wrap all of it up, a people as partners model. So that was really the Global Studio. And I'll give you a couple of little examples, hopefully if my time allows me to do that. But I want to go on to the next one, People Building Better Cities, a traveling exhibition, went to 10 countries, 18 cities. And again, it attempted to address a meaningful problem, in my view, that academic knowledge, also known as publications, can be exclusionary. People can't get behind paywalls for journals and often has limited impact. So the innovation issues for me in that one was, how do you communicate beyond the university? How do you stimulate dialogue on local concerns to use what you've done to stimulate something else? And that was very much part of People Building Better Cities, also online, also available in 6 languages, et cetera, et cetera. Moving on to accelerating the SDGs, which I began in 2018. And again, it was more or less a hunch of mine. I felt anybody you talk to in the UN world, but not often in architecture, you said, what do you know about the SDGs? And mostly you'd get very blank stares. I'm absolutely delighted to see how the UIA is taken on this recently and is absolutely going full force. But again, I thought that was a meaningful problem, a good question to ask. And we addressed that through a survey, how are the SDGs traveling in your world? We followed that up with a request for projects. And if you go online to have a look at the local project challenge, you will see how we did that. Again, the innovation issues for me were combining research and action, engaging broadly. We engaged with students, educators, the professions, and very importantly, civil society. So just to give you a little bit of detail on those projects, that here was the Global Studio, an old slide. It started at Sydney University, came out of that task force, that whole question of why you do anything, Columbia University and the University of Rome. And I wanted to just focus a little bit on what were some of the key principles. We adopted a participatory process, where design professionals partnered with communities. And we had a number of questions. We had it under this heading, it's a little bit hard to see, but under listen, observe, and ask. And what we were trying to get was a holistic sort of view of what people felt about where they live, what they liked, disliked, what was the historical context, what visions they had for the future. So you can see all of that was trying to get at this question, this critique, this horrible critique. The urban professionals don't listen. So in terms of education, it was, how do you take a group of young people, and we had professionals that came as well, and how do you get them to think about, well, I'm not coming to give you a solution. I'm coming to listen to you, to help you do what you want to do. And again, we created this diagram here. And whenever I talk about this, I like to say trust. There's no reason why anybody should trust urban professionals, designers, well-meaning students, etc. So here's just these are some panels from this exhibition that we did. And our aim was to educate urban professionals in place to promote inclusive, equitable cities. And again, one can sort of look at those. Key to all of this was the notion of a lot of discussion, a lot of interaction, a lot of messy sort of stuff that happened. And we looked at this as a model, and I've got a slide that gets a little bit more detail on this bottom section, but I'll just show you two proposals that came out of that. Sorry, and this was for Bhopal, two proposals for a public comment. So it's an urban design project. And all of this came out of a lot of discussion, a lot of on the ground research, a lot of feedback, and so on. So the key part of this process was working with people, again, to keep in mind the urban professionals don't listen question. And here you can see this notion that what we were trying to do is to give people a voice. And that was what we tried to instill in the students in all these programs and all the participants. That voice must be heard, that voice must not be tokenistic, that voice must be a driving factor. So one of the things we also tried to do, and I mentioned already this notion of the exhibition, and always looking for different ways of communicating. I personally feel, I've already mentioned the academic articles, the things that us as academics are required to do to publish or perish, and that this sort of material is often not in a language that is easily understood. So we experimented, and we thought it was a novel idea. So we made quite a number of films. So here from a website, you can see the films that we made from Turkey, from South Africa, and from India. And we felt that this was a good way of making a record, sharing a sort of research project, if you like, sharing an innovative approach. And here you can see this was from Bhopal. We did little interviews with people who came to assist us and so on. Now, all of this came together, and some of the panels that I've showed you already are on this People Building Better Cities website. And on this website, you can see here how many, I mentioned it went to 10 countries and 18 cities, and here they are. And we started in Bangkok in 2013, and we ended in Ann Arbor, Michigan in 2015. And if you want to look at this project, I think, again, thinking about innovation, one of the things that we thought was really interesting was to create a resource platform. And there's all sorts of resources on that. And we thought, well, they should be accessible to anybody. So there's lots of films, there's lots of material that, should be much more, much more people friendly, if you like. Anyway, so there we have that. And in this exhibition, we do ask questions and we try and quote key people and so on. But the whole question of how do designers and planners work effectively with individuals and communities to address urban problems and help deliver better outcomes. In that exhibition also, we tried to go more generally, to talk about climate change, to talk about who's doing what, and you could, to try and graphically represent so it's easily understood. And all this thing about, how do academics, how does the education sector communicate its finding, help create actionable outcomes. So here was the panel that we did on climate change. Again, looking a bit at the innovation in terms of the approach, we were taking what we called an action planning plus engaged inquiry. That's the asking questions, that's the listening, making sure the citizen engagement is there, plus trust. And that takes a long time to develop. You do not get it it does not come easily. And we felt that these little diagrams said, well, top-down planning doesn't work. Bottom up loses the professional, the benefits of professional expertise. So we came to the conclusion that working together in multidisciplinary teams makes top down meet bottom up, and then you get a possibility for effective action. Okay, that's that project. The last one that we've completed recently is the local project challenge. And this was a research project to engage academics, students, researchers, urban professionals, and civil society. It began with a first stage, a city maker survey, and I mentioned that already, ask a question, see what the answer is, and we got over 1,000 responses. We then called for projects, and these are the projects. If you go to this site, you will find 111 projects there. And of course, we're now still working on the dissemination, which is writing this all up and creating what one does as an academic. And I wanted to just show you visually somehow we represented this. We had some professional projects, housing, clinics, agricultural centers. We had a lot of projects from education, Ireland, a primary school in the US, New Zealand, from Denmark. Again, each of these takes quite a lot of looking. And I just wanted to give you an example, because I was always, how do you look for something that's a bit innovative? So we're trying to get people into understanding the SDGs. And one assumes that they probably don't know much about them. And of course, this award has the issue, the SDGs have only been in since, 2015. So they haven't been around that long. And so what we did with asking for material, we asked for a project overview, which you can see here. We created this diagram and asked them to say which of the SDGs had they addressed. So the highlighted ones, the ones they addressed. And then we asked them to supply us with some of the targets. Some of the targets that they had addressed. So 11.6, reduce the environmental impact of cities. 12.8, promote universal understanding of sustainable lifestyles. And then to bring it back to something that was more professional, more academic, we asked them what were the disciplines or what were the areas represented in this project. This project happens to be from someone you'll all be familiar with, Young Girl Architects, who have done a huge amount in transforming cities over the years. After we finished that, then of course the academic thing is to go back and ask and say, what happened? And we were very pleased to find that when we surveyed the people who had participated, that it was very likely that they would take up the SDGs in future work. So that seems to me to be quite a good way of creating value, that you put an idea to somebody, they took it up, and they're going to use it again. One could go back and check whether that's really true, but sorry. And then we asked whether they had shared the local project challenge with the networks, because then you've got an idea, and how do you get it out to a lot of people? When we calculated, we thought probably that this project had been shared, that we could figure out probably about 300,000 times. So we thought, well, that's good. At least a lot of people are thinking about how other people work with the SDGs. So that it was sort of like, how do you keep thinking of things to bolster your projects? Here, I was just going to refer, but I won't go into in detail. Well, these are the questions that we always have asked that came from the Global Studio, which was, listen, observe, and ask, and so on and so forth. Now, I think I must be sort of getting a bit short of time. So I want to go on to the current project that I'm hoping will result in something. And it leads off from these previous projects. And I guess I would just like to emphasize that it does seem to me when one's doing this sort of work, one idea leads to another idea, leads to another idea. And so this is how this project has come into being. And it also came into being because I was very fortunate to have been invited to be a juror on the UIA UN Habitat SDGs Award. And so this is quite an inspired project by the UIA. And it's going to happen over the next up to 2030, every 2 years. And I thought, my gosh, if the professionals are going to be putting in projects for an award every 2 years, why can't we do something in the education space? So this is a proposal which I hope will have legs. And so we're proposing there'll be 5 cycles of projects, and that will result from an invitation to design schools worldwide to offer studios that address the SDGs. So all of this will have a sort of, a knowledge building, sharing website. We intend publications, symposia, and so on and so forth, with the aims to increase the awareness of depth and breadth of the SDGs, to build critical capacity in next-gen professionals, share knowledge, and achieve some out-of-the-box impacts for participants, communities, and architectural practices. So far, that's as far as we've got, but we think it's a meaningful problem. We think the solution is novel, and we think it will create value. So in my books, having been sort of asked to think about this question of innovation, I think it could be quite innovative. So I want to give a little plug to the UIA and the upcoming Congress, because I think that is also inspired and innovative. And the Danes are doing an amazing job in mounting the content for this. There are 6 panels, and I've had the privilege of co-chairing panel 3, which is designed for resilient communities. And so my co-chair and I had to develop what we thought was this subject matter for this. And one of them is we've got 7 subheadings, and then number 7, 3.7, is architectural education in a global habitat. So again, what we're trying to do is to build off, there's a wonderful UNESCO report, Knowledge-Driven Actions Transforming Higher Education for Global Sustainability, and they're advocating SDGs right through educational curricula. And so we're hoping, and we received a lot of papers on this topic for next year's conference. So we're quite thrilled about that. And to conclude, I would say that education makes the world a better place. And you won't be able to read that little piece at the bottom. And this is from one of our exhibition panels from the People Building Better Cities exhibition. There's 23 panels. And I just thought I would read it out to you, because when one sort of talks about these things reflectively, it can all sound so simple and straightforward, and everything is clear. But in fact, that is not the case. And Nabil Hamdi, who I have an enormous amount of respect and regard for the participatory work that he has promoted, engendered, and done in sort of planning and architecture, is a little quote we put on this panel from Nabil. And I'm going to read just a little bit out of it. It says, "Don't try to sort out the mess and ambiguity. Engage with it. Give chance a chance. Be prepared to get muddled, because you cannot possibly hold it all in your head. Recognize that getting muddled is a prelude to creative work. Encourage random encounters. Position yourself with purpose, and then let circumstances guide you along." And I think that's sort of a wonderful sort of starting point. And I do think that innovation makes the world a better place. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anna, for this very comprehensive presentation. It was very useful indeed. I thought that we can use the extra time, the extra minutes that we had from the president's last presentation to give extra minutes to each presenter. So we will take now the questions and answers, or even comments if you have any. From previous experiences, this happens a lot. I guess we need to see more presentations in order to have specific questions. But anyway, let's move to our second presenter, who is a very dear presenter to us. Dr. Ashraf Salama is a professor of architecture and urbanism and chair of architecture and built environment at the University of Northumbria at Newcastle, United Kingdom. He has led 3 schools of architecture in Egypt, Qatar, and UK, and has held tenured and visiting positions in Germany, Italy, Switzerland, Saudi Arabia, and the United States. He has authored and edited 17 books on architectural education and Middle Eastern architecture and urbanism, and more than 200 articles on the same topics. Professor Salama is the recipient of the 2017 UIA Jean Shoney Prize for Excellence in Architectural Education and Criticism, and is the founder and chief editor of ArcNet, International Journal of Architecture Research. So Professor Ashraf, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for this nice introduction, Iman. So just a second, I'm gonna share my presentation. Let me do this. Okay. Okay, so does it show?
Yes.
Excellent. Okay, thank you very much. I'm really glad to be part of the event, although I'm one of the technical committee members also in organizing the award. So my talk is about the award. I'm not gonna present any academic discussion or professional discussion. It's just about the award, but I will reflect also on some of the entries that we have received in the previous award. And I should say also that I'm speaking on behalf of the technical committee members of the award, the co-directors of Sustainable Development Goals, Iman and Sid, and the co-directors of the Education Commission, Marlies and myself. So I will not be talking long. I will try to be brief as much as possible, because also we want to give opportunity to other speakers. And I would say the presentation really of Anna opens a lot of issues and a lot of discussions about the role of the professions and the role of the architects and urban professionals and how education should respond to that. So hopefully the award is one of the steps that we can take to achieve these goals in terms of how architects play a more responsive role in society. In the previous award, we had a number of objectives, we have a number of themes. One interesting thing was we were trying to link pedagogical practices to sustainable development goals, but sustainable development goals were not really elaborated upon clearly in the statement of the previous or inaugural award. So we maintain some of these objectives in the new award in the second edition, I should say, with an enhanced articulation of these objectives. So we try to recognize excellence in architecture and urban design education, to focus on innovative pedagogies. And now we have some excellent definitions of what do we mean by innovation, whether social innovation, technical innovation, or civic innovation, to foster the development of sustainable environments across the 5 UIA regions, to try to align with the UNESCO UIA Charter for Architecture Education. That was the previous one. So we are maintaining this, but we are adding to that, which I'm gonna show quickly. As we can see here, the award team developed a set of key criteria that basically respondents or entries can react to, and most of them were focusing on pedagogy, scholarship, and linking that to sustainability and sustainable development goals. So the same criteria we are adopting in the current cycle or in the current award, but again, we enhanced this in terms of focusing on or more focus on sustainable development goals. We had an interesting jury, and maybe it was large in terms of numbers. It was representing the 5 UIA regions, and we had an excellent discussion as part of the jury deliberations on the entries. And as you can see from the image and the evaluation form, we were trying to balance also qualitative discussions and input from the jury members, as well as a scoring system to be able to have objective criteria to look at the, or objective measurements to look at the 2 key criteria of excellence in pedagogy and excellence in creating sustainable environments. The entries that we received really reflected a significant range of issues that address sustainable development goals and that address also excellence in pedagogy. And I'm going, of course, we shortlisted some of them, and then we discussed them, and then we asked the jury members to develop some statements about them. Then we had a session. So it was a long process that ended up with the selection of projects. And I'm going to highlight some key aspects of the awarded projects, and also the ones that received commendation. For example, this is one of the projects submitted by David Garcia, Professor David Garcia, Royal Danish Academy in Denmark. And it tries to establish the notion of culturally plural program that deals with the challenges in extreme environments. So under the heading of on-site collaboration and architecture in extreme environments, this studio is developed, and it's a 2-year studio. It's like a master program, trying to demonstrate a great sensitivity to environmental issues, and of course, attempt to integrate research into design. There is significant amount of research that goes into the development of solution. This project by, again, Professor Elizabeth Golden, and she's with us, so I'm not going to expand on it, but it's unique in the sense of addressing sustainable development goals, or some of them, in a seminar setting rather than a studio setting, which, and this is the uniqueness of this. Whenever we talk about architecture education, we always capture what we do in studios, but we don't talk about what goes on in seminar classes and discussions and all of these learning settings. So this project is unique from this perspective. And also it addresses a number of goals and spell them out explicitly. And I'll leave it to Elizabeth to expand on this. Another project submitted by a team, Professor Zhang Tong and staff and students at the School of Architecture in Nanjing, China, Southeast University, and it's called Living Construction in Rural Communities, focusing. There is a trend in China, and probably Professor Song will explain that further. But the whole idea of working in rural context is very important in the context of China, and probably it is not taking I would say, a priority in a number of other areas around the world. So living construction in rural communities, trying to reposition the contribution of the architect within small communities, rural communities, try to integrate theory with practice, and as it shows in the process that was explained in the project, space with locality, individual housing with settlements. So it tried to address a number of qualities at a smaller scale and at a wider scale. Here is an interesting one, and this project was submitted by Professor Song, who is with us, and from Tsinghua University. So it's a workshop addressing sustainable. It's a sustainable design studio, explores new ways of expanding innovative abilities of master students to deal with real life context, again in rural landscape. So there were interesting jury statements about this project, trying to say, for example, a wonderful collaboration among architecture academic students and the local communities, and this reflect really some of the points that Anna was raising in terms of urban professionals don't listen. Yes, they don't. So, and some of these experiments would promote the culture of listening and the culture of collaboration across the board. And I will leave it also to Song to explain it further. In addition to the 4 awarded projects, we had 3 commendations, one from Spain, and again, trying to look at the role of the architect and spell that explicitly in the project. It's by the School of Architecture in Barcelona, and it's trying to look at the idea of how architects can work with communities, and they call the studio community architects, basically. So that was an interesting project, and also received commendation because of the uniqueness in terms of relating to the community in an urban context like Barcelona. We had 2 other commendations. This is one of them from Southeast University, Nanjing, China, and it talks about how can we introduce positive interventions in urban context, and trying to look at a program that utilizes residential blocks, so focusing on residential environments, residential blocks as areas of research topics. So they take the block and it becomes a research object with its problems, societal problems, environmental problems, and how they can react to it. Another interesting one, and this is the last one I'm going to present, is very, very unique because it's not about a project. And this is the good thing about this award. It doesn't have to address a project or a specific student outcome. It can also look at innovation in curricula and in developing and structuring the curriculum. This is one of them. Again, presented by a team from China, Southeast University in Nanjing, and it talks about the notion of transdisciplinarity and how different disciplines can work together to generate design solutions, while not compromising the disciplinary core of architecture that's still strong, but working with other professionals and how students from different disciplines can collaborate together. So these are the awarded and commended projects. And they show a very, very important range of solutions and interventions within architecture education, and that there is a hope really in architecture education to address challenges, whether environmental or social. So in this second edition, what is unique really in this second edition? First of all, we spelled out sustainable development goals. Second, to do that, we collaborated as Education Commission and Sustainable Development Goals Commission. to collaborate to generate this. And this will enable publicity, will enable input of different types of expertise. And we aspire really that this award become a standard award within the UIA, a standard of excellence in architecture education. And hopefully, eventually, we collaborate with other international organizations. So again, we're focusing on the idea of excellence and how to promote excellence and think of excellence. And we look also at alignment with other UIA activities, because that's an important one. We don't want to see this award as a one-off award exercise and one of those awards and that's it. We want to align with a number of documents. So we're aligning with the Architecture Guide for United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, which was developed by the Danish architecture section as part of the Sustainable Development Goals Commission of the UIA. The year 2020 also was designated as the year of design for health. So the award gives an opportunity to provide solutions and look at the health perspective within Sustainable Development Goals. So that kind of alignment and synchronization within the UIA activities was important in developing this edition. We also look at, as part of the concept, so we have two excellence dimensions. As part of the concepts, we recognize that, and this is where we spelled out ideas related to Sustainable Development Goals. We talked about climate action, health, inclusivity, migration, community development, resource efficiency, heritage conservation. So any project or any effort within a school of architecture addressing one or more of these themes, whether at a level of a class or a studio project, or even a thesis, or at the level of a curriculum structure, all of these are accommodated by the award, or all of these efforts. So excellence here, we talk about excellence in pedagogical practice. How do we really communicate, deliver, integrate, engage the students in a supportive learning environment that is really student-centered? And the second type of excellence is about the Sustainable Development Goals. So how to evidence this was an important issue, and we were trying to offer the participants a number of possibilities on how to demonstrate excellence. Of course, this list is not exclusive. We can keep adding to them, or a school of architecture or a program of architecture can see that there are other ways to demonstrate excellence in pedagogy and in addressing Sustainable Development Goals. But here we have a number of 6 possibilities to demonstrate excellence. As I say, they are not exclusive. They don't have to, they are not like entries don't have to commit to these. They can have 1 or 2 and add others, or they can have others ways of demonstrating excellence in these 2 areas. We have an interesting jury also that represent the UIA 5 regions from United States and Spain, Lebanon, Saudi Arabia, United States again, Michael Crosby, India, South Africa, and also we have alternate jury members, and this is a practice of the UIA. We have to have alternate jury members. And then the technical committee, which is basically the co-directors of the 2 commissions. We are developing this form as a basis for scoring the entries when we receive them, and in advance of the jury meetings. So these are basically, it's like a trigger to think about the project in specific terms and to try to look at specific merits within each project. So I'll conclude with this one, and I would say the award also is enabling a substantial number of activities for us, for the two commissions. We have conducted a number of workshops with African schools of architecture, heads of African schools of architecture, and also heads and representatives from Region 2, which is basically Eastern Europe and major part of the MENA region within parts of the Middle East. And this seminar is one of them, but this is, I would say, is our jewel in terms of having expertise and hands-on experience in terms of how to address sustainable development goals as they relate to education. So I'll stop here, but I would say further information are available on the award, submission requirements, submission platform, all of this is available on the UIA website. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Ashraf. I must say that the award is considered for us unique and important, as it is the first time that both commissions combine their efforts in a joint project. We were encouraged at the beginning of this mandate by the UIA Council and Bureau members to promote our activities through combining the efforts of several working bodies. Actually, I believe that we as architects and educators really consider having enough information about previous award, previous work, fundamental for us to begin submitting our project or our efforts in the second award. Also, as Professor Ashraf has mentioned, we are aiming to have another workshop or another webinar. We are progressing this idea together in order to focus more on the SDG practicalities, the implementation not only in the academic background, but the practicality of it in the future for other audience, not only students and professors. So we move now to the part where we accept questions from the audience. I'm not sure if we have any till now, or comments if you like. Okay, let us save some time and move to our third presenter, Professor Elizabeth Golden. She's an architect and an associate professor in the Department of Architecture at the University of Washington, where she teaches in the areas of design, materials, and building technology. Her teaching, academic research, and creative work investigate the relationship between people and their environment, both at the micro and macro scales, analyzing architecture as an index to its large cultural context. Underpinning her practice is an ongoing analysis of the complex relationship of architecture and the built environment to systematic issues such as social marginalization and economic globalization. I welcome Professor Elizabeth to begin her presentation. Professor Elizabeth, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Iman, for the introduction, and thank you to the Commission for inviting me to present my course. I'm really honored to be here today. Okay, is that working? Can everybody see and hear? Excellent. So I am introducing my course, which Ashraf mentioned earlier is a seminar. So I think it was really, for me at least, stood out when I finally saw the awards that were selected. And was kind of surprised in a way, but I think I knew that this was a sort of outlier because it is a seminar and not a studio. So just to kind of frame the course a little bit, it's very much related to my own research. And one aspect of my research focuses on sustainable material systems and their potential to transform the built environment. So a kind of output of that was a book that I wrote a few years ago, which is, in a way, it was the textbook that I was thinking was missing for the course that I was teaching. So the book really looks at traditional building methods, so namely looking at bamboo, earth, and wood systems, but within the framework of contemporary architecture. So really finding examples from all over the world that really show how these materials can be used today and are actually can be feasibly used today, even for larger scale projects. And the work, again, the seminar and my book and my research and actually my practice are all tied together. And so I also am using these materials in my own work. So one example is a housing project, which was a collaboration with other architects in Niger, using compressed earth block, which actually was nominated for or shortlisted for Aga Khan Award for Architecture this summer. And then I'm continuing to work with these materials and actually trying to find a way to bring more sustainable building practices to places like Phoenix, Arizona, in the United States. So I think that's also really important when looking at this course in relation to others that I am working from the United States. So working with these types of materials is not usual or common. And that actually was sort of the impetus for me to develop this course. I was teaching a construction practice course. This was many years ago. And I realized that we were only focusing on these very narrow industrial systems that we use in the United States. So our systems are very much based around wood, and then for larger buildings, steel and concrete. And I know that that's the case in other places around the world, that there is a focus then on reinforced concrete systems. So I've kind of given an example of these two types of projects. So students were really being introduced to these systems. And of course, these are probably the systems that they typically would be working with. But I really felt like it would be important also to introduce students to more sustainable materials and to also think about other communities around the world that might not use these systems or are starting to lose knowledge or traditional knowledge of their systems due to industrialization. So that was really the impetus for me to develop this course, not only for US-born American students, but I have students from all over the world, from China, from Mexico, and many of them are very interested in learning about these traditional systems, but it's just not taught or offered. So this course I developed it as a 10-week seminar. So we are actually on a quarter system at my school. So it's a very short period of time. So it is a survey course. It's open to graduate and undergraduate architecture students. And also students, in our college, we have landscape architecture, civil engineering, and construction management, and also real estate. So it's open to any student in the college. So I've had students from landscape architecture also be very interested in this course because it deals with natural and renewable materials. So it's really centered around the concept of cultural sustainability. So it's challenging this idea of the one-size-fits-all mentality of global development that these material systems that I'm showing you sort of represent. So the seminar introduces students to the potential of building with local resources in the 21st century and demonstrates how traditional materials such as earth and bamboo continue to hold significance for communities globally. And the materials and their corresponding practices become a gateway for understanding history, promoting intercultural awareness, and they are a means for studying and comprehending global and environmental issues such as deforestation, rural poverty, and population growth. And the course offers a critical analysis of traditional building practices and examines these through the lens of contemporary conditions driving their development in recent years. So this is just an example where I'm trying to show, and this was actually on the submission, just in one particular place, how bamboo, for example, was something that was very much connected to a way of life, and that was lost actually through colonization. And now there are these efforts to return to these methods, but use them in new and contemporary ways. So the seminar draws upon historical examples to describe fundamental techniques and illustrate how building practices spread through global migration and knowledge transfer. Students learn how materials were selected not only for their functional properties, but also for their social, symbolic, and ritual value. Surviving structures also highlight the capacity of local materials and their potential to endure. These examples defy dominant preconceptions that these resources are weak or deficient. And then contemporary research and testing now also provide a greater understanding of material properties that have previously been difficult to quantify. So students learn about basic concepts, and I'm sort of representing that through showing the magnification of clay, and we really look at the kind of scientifically studied properties of clay. And when somebody, and I'm showing here this example in Morocco of rammed earth, how that process actually happens on a microscopic scale. So it's really connecting the dots in a way between history and science and practices over time. And then the students also learn through hands-on workshops where these hands-on workshops physically reiterate content that they've learned through the lectures and the readings. And these hands-on activities foster a deeper appreciation of construction methods and material behaviors. So in the past, to understand the nature of a material meant to work with it directly, and building with accessible resources led to an understanding of their limits and capabilities. So students follow the same process of learning by doing, by engaging and experimenting with key materials discussed in the class: wood, bamboo, and earth. These workshops promote social interaction, cooperation, and knowledge transfer between students and local experts who provide direction and guidance. And student teams procure an assigned material and perform simple tests prior to organizing their workshop, where they teach the rest of the class what they've learned. And the workshop successes and challenges become learning opportunities for students and underscore the potential for non-expert community engagement and experimentation in the field, an aspect that's often missing in conventional construction scenarios. And finally, we study contemporary built projects and the processes behind their conception and making. And this is really a compelling way for students to learn about relevant and sustainable development strategies that respond to people, culture, climate, and regional economic systems. And we look at a broad cross-section of work from industrialized and rapidly industrializing countries. And we analyze this work through class lectures, discussions, and individual investigation, which students do on their own. And then they present the work as a presentation in class and also as a research paper. And these projects highlight the benefits of employing renewable, minimally processed and transported construction materials. And the production is often achieved through simple processes requiring minimal or no energy. Students also study how architects mobilize local resources in response to specific climatic conditions. And then I put some of these, and they're really small, you can't see them, but these are sort of examples of the projects that we look at in the class. And these projects tangibly demonstrate how Indigenous resources and local craft knowledge can support sustainable economic development, while also maintaining significant cultural practices related to agriculture and forestry, manufacturing, and construction. And students study how resources such as bamboo and earth offer feasible solutions for providing multifamily housing and mid-sized institutional buildings in some of the fastest growing countries in the world. And that for me is really important to emphasize in the course, that we don't just look at one-off projects, but that we really try to think of how these materials can address some of the biggest issues that we're facing today, one of them being housing. And then finally, I'll end here with the impact of the course. In terms of students and also like my own research. So students in the course conducting research, they've actually then gone on, students that have come from other countries and have had the opportunity to take the course and do research during that course. They've then gone on, graduated and become practicing architects and been able to apply some of the knowledge that they developed while they were in the course to actual built work. I've also had students who became very interested through just being introduced or the discussions that we had in the course and specific materials, and have gone on to then go out into the field and do research in places like Ecuador into structural bamboo codes, and then write journal articles. So I've put the example, that's the one in the middle. And then also students, again, because it's an introductory course and students are just learning about these materials, it gets them really excited. And so when some other course is offered where they then get the chance to work with the material out in the field and engage communities through the material, this course becomes a kind of gateway to other opportunities. And this is, I'm just giving one example, which is the Philippines Bamboo Workshop, which I organized with a colleague of mine, Ray Villanueva, who is running a bamboo production facility in the Philippines. And so students taking the course then kind of learn about those types of opportunities and then continue on to take other classes related to what we learned previously. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth, for giving us the chance to see the product of your seminars. Actually, what is very interesting for me is how you introduced the importance of learning by doing, showing the material effects in the field itself. So I guess it was very interesting for the students. We now have questions from Talia. Actually, Talia is one of the jury members, the alternate jury members in our award. She was asking about the recordings or how can we see again the webinar. I was informed by the UIA Secretariat that the YouTube channel of the UIA will publish the recordings after the end of the webinar at the earliest convenience. So I guess it will be available for other interested audience. Okay, we have another question. Oh no, it's Talia. Talia Nas, okay. Thank you. If we don't have any other question, let us move to the other award winning from another region of the UIA. Song Yao is a TUNU professor and PhD tutor, director of Building and Technology Research Institute of Tsinghua University School of Architecture. Is also the deputy chief architect of THED, the Architectural Design and Research Institute of Tsinghua University. He's a visiting scholar of technology at the University of Munich. He's also the co-founder and principal architect at SUP Atelier, deputy director of the Committee of Architectural Technology at the National Steering Committee of Architectural Education, and as well as deputy director of the Active House Academic Committee of Architectural Society of China. So we welcome Professor Song and invite him to present his awarded project last year. Professor Song.
Okay, thank you, Iman. Thank you. I just share my screen. Yeah. Hello. Can you see that?
Yes, we can, and we can hear you as well.
Okay, so I just start my part. Thank you very much, Iman. And thank you very much, Ashraf, and also Elizabeth, because my topic here is about holistic sustainable architecture education in my school, actually. Because my major is sustainable architecture research, both in urban design and architecture design. That's the 4 pages of last year's thing. We have a topic within 20 kilometers, originally from the goals of SDG goals, yeah. So first we have 3 things and we pay much attention to. First is about holistic sustainable thinking based challenge. It's kind of a challenge because sustainable design goals, we have a lot crossover and this more, this less. It's very difficult to balance. So we have to think it holistically. And second is about deep cooperation with professionals. For instance, bamboo is something very sustainable as building materials, no doubt, but only a few engineers understand this kind of particular material. If you want to use it for real project, to have a big span, have the height. So yeah, we have to work together with professionals. Third is kind of very particular in China, because after years of developing, we got the opportunity to have our teaching project as kind of real project-based thing, which means the students got the chance to be part of the professional architect, the work of that. So that's the 3 points. First is about holistic thinking. Yeah, we got SDGs from the 2015. And talking about particular design, we pay much attention to that. For instance, the climate condition and vernacular or local materials, a traditional method of craftsmanship, engineers, and budget. Because China is not like the metropolitan, like Shanghai or Beijing. We got a lot more areas still developing, and budget is something very crucial. We have to have our students to understand that when they are still in school, and then life cycle assessment and reuse to turn garbage, from garbage to something valuable for as building materials, and then the multi-use spatial requirement, especially for the projects in rural areas in China, developing rural areas, because it's not easy for local people, for the farmers, to whole villagers to get a chance to build something new, and multiple functional is kind of essential goal for them. And then we have this kind of frame. So we just set it within 20 kilometers, easy to get, easy to maintain, and easy to use. And also bamboo is the key material for us, and we spent years on that together with graduate students or PhD students and postgraduates, a lot more people together. We work and do some research, particularly with bamboo. A deep cooperation with professionals. We just set it in the workshop, seminars, discussion, and a lot more things, even with professional support. And then real project based and full course as the training for an architect. So that's the schedule. Yeah, workshop is something, we got a very limited period of time. Yeah, but still we try to manage it, and we pay much attention to site survey, investigation, and local materials research, and concept design, detailed design, and with lectures, yeah, arranged, and do the life cycle assessment. Yeah, that's on the course for the site survey, and say the local, to understand what's happening in China. Yeah, not only in Beijing or Shanghai, still a lot more developing places, but with particularly cultural background. The local craftsmanship maintained very well. And also discussion online during the course of the pandemic. So online communicating, and also the trash, abandoned a lot more materials to be reclaimed, used in the new buildings for the villagers. And talking about bamboo, it's a little bit difficult for us to build it for something permanent, because we got very strict codes and regulations, fireproof, structure-proof, a lot more things. But on the other hand, in China, we have a long tradition to have envelope, to have pavilions in nature, which means a harmony between human being and nature. So it's not what we think the permanent thing. It's kind of contemporary thing, just there without walls, just with roof, still could be part of the lives of local people. And also we have the distribution of bamboos in China, around the world, and the micro structure of bamboo, and the performance of force. And also very interesting, around the world, we have almost the same way to treat with, to bundle it, or to, no matter in which country. And also, lucky enough, in Fujian province, where the construction site is, we got relatively comfort climate condition. So, which make it possible for us to have the big span bamboo structure without this kind of envelope. Yeah, it's not totally enveloped, only roof. It's open to the villagers as tea market, like grocery. After that, after the workshop, the real project still go on, and some of the students still get a chance to working on the construction site, to understand the way of the workers, and to work with the workers to make something with bamboo, with rammed earth in a traditional way. Yeah, that's the map, the site, real site. And we've got county, city, and Fujian province here. Here's Taiwan. And we got the local things. During the course of investigation, we found oak tea, rammed earth, traditional Chinese timber bridge. 2 of the 3 kind of traditional Chinese culture. Yeah, the rammed earth, traditional residential buildings for hundreds of years, and also the traditional Chinese timber bridge. Yeah, also hundreds of years. Lucky us. Just around the construction site, 20 kilometers, we got a lot more this kind of real thing. Yeah, that's vernacular elements. Rammed earth, abandoned. Local villagers, they are not fond of living in this kind of condition. Also, we have a lot more scientific support that is comfort, but they still want something like in brick buildings or concrete buildings. So that's timber reclaimed, abandoned, the plates, stone plates, we just collected, and earth. We do the life cycle material treatment may be discarded in 10 years, in decade, and could be reused in another way. Not certainly to be part of building materials. That's way of construction. And diagram, and also the diagram for construction. Yeah. And another experience for us to do something in rural China is to ask local villagers to be part of labor, working for themselves, easy to maintain, less to complain. So the people for rammed earth. The only thing we renovated is we have kind of timber break here, because that's for this multifunctional purpose behind. A lot more events might be happening here. So they might be needing this kind to nail something on. Yeah. So we just have the timber breaking. And also the water timber bridge. We learned something from here. That's also part of sustainable development. The traditional craftsmanship could be part of the new thing. We just do research for the water timber bridge. And also 1,000 years in the year 1100. Yeah, we got very famous Chinese painting, the Rainbow Timber Bridge. The Leonardo da Vinci, we also discovered after 400 years, this kind of similar structures elements. We do comparison research together and then make it. We just replaced timber with bamboo, because it's not as bridge, just as roof. So we do a lot more detailed design. That something happened, and still some of the students still part of the interns for this real thing, and also do the construction site survey and do the experiment for load bearing under construction. Yeah, that's design, and that's under construction, and that's something real afterwards. The multifunctional thing, essential for rural area in China. Yeah, that's a workshop product for villagers to have a space. That's a bamboo and rammed earth work together, and with the villagers. That's some lighting. Natural lighting. A lot more events happened there. We are quite happy because we still afterwards we do some kind of post-occupation evaluate how this be used, how the villagers think of that. Oh, that's a abandoned stone place to be part of pavement or to be part of the pedal for travel here. The vaulted bamboo roof with opening 18 meters. It's relatively huge, and reclaimed timber. For natural ventilation, blocks the wind from the winter wind. That's the prevailing wind direction from winter from summer. That's a night view. Yeah, very strange because that region seldom snows. And this year, a heavy snow. That's okay. Thank you very much. Yeah, that's all for my presentation. Thank you, Iman.
Thank you, Professor Sung. Before getting to the next one, we have a question from Criselda Roldan. He's from Philippines. And he was asking about the bamboo. I guess the question goes for the last two presenters, the word
Okay.
the question is, are bamboo being used as building low-cost housing in other parts of the world? He means other than the Philippines, his home country.
Elizabeth, could you please, just
sorry,
answer the question?
Criselda. I think I answered it in the chat, but I put the wrong name on there. Sorry, but I answered it. I just said that there are examples in Ecuador and Colombia that I know of, and that the article that I mentioned by one of my students, that's in the TAD journal, which I think should be available online. Then I put the name of that might actually be interesting for you, because they talk about the challenges to that in Ecuador, and that might be interesting to look at.
Okay. Perhaps Professor Song can also give some examples.
Yes. I would like to recommend an organization called IMBA, International Organization for Bamboo and Rattan. Yeah, INBAR. Yeah, they got a lot more information on their website around the world, a lot more countries. ASEAN countries and South America, a lot more countries, they have this kind of practice with bamboo. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I can see Anna also raising her hand.
Yeah, thank you both for really wonderful presentations. I would just like to add that an architectural company I know of working in Australia is working very extensively with bamboo in housing, and that is Cave Urban. They have a website, but I know they're doing a lot of research on the ground in Indonesia, so that might be something other people would like to see. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna, also for the additional info. We have, as I said at the beginning, last but not least, Ilaria Valente. Ilaria has graduated in architecture at Politecnico di Milano. She also has a PhD degree in architectural composition. She's a full professor of architecture and urban design at the Department of Architecture and Urban Studies, Politecnico di Milano. At Politecnico di Milano, she was the Dean of the School of Architecture and Society and the School of Architecture and Urban Planning Construction Engineering. She has been the president of the Conferenza Universitaria Italiana di Architettura. Since 2017, she has been the vice president of the European Association for Architectural Education. She has collaborated with international and national research institutions, and her research is devoted to theory, tools, and design methods, with particular attention to the architecture of open and public spaces. So we welcome Ilaria, and we're eager to hear her presentation. Ilaria, please.
Thank you. I share my screen. Do you see the presentation?
Yes, we can.
Yes, I put it. Now it's all black on my screen. Okay, here we are. So Thank you. I want first of all to thank a lot to UIA for this invitation, and also to thank the colleagues, the speakers of this afternoon, because I think that now we have really a very an exciting mosaic of projects and initiatives and best practice around the SDGs and around innovative teaching and sustainability. So I think that this is a really interesting occasion to exchange ideas and to build a future work on this issue. So I want just to explain to you, I try to be short, what we are organizing with the European Association for Architectural Education around the Sustainable Development Goals. And so I make a short story. We had a meeting, a virtual meeting that was organized by the Oslo School of Architecture in 21, a Dean's Summit. The Dean's Summit is a strategic meeting that UIA organize every year. We have also the General Assembly, but this one is devoted to the deans and to some topics. And we during the Dean Summit was focused on climate crisis and sustainability in education, and so we produced the pledge for some common action, and the idea was.
May I ask you to use the presenter's mode, because we are only at the first slide.
At the first
yes, I guess you've been trying to move on, but we see only the first one, the title slide.
Strange.
Use the presenter mode down, please.
Yeah. Yes, because I have two screens, and maybe this one. I try to do it another way. Sorry. Oh, that's a problem.
But you do have a presenter mode.
Just a minute. Because I am in the presenter mode, but I have to do it another way. I try to share the screen is better.
Okay.
It's a better way, sorry. Because sometimes it happens that in this way it doesn't work. Okay. Now I think it's better. It will be better. Sorry. Now you are on the second one or not?
Yes, we are.
Yeah, about Oslo Pledge. Thank you. So it's the way of sharing. Sometimes it happens when we try to share just the file, it happens that something doesn't work. So we define a pledge of some common goals for the School of Architecture. I want to be rapid about that. The idea was to work on our curricula to better define the contents about sustainability and climate change. So then, in this occasion, we decided to. Sorry, this is the second one. Do you see the second one? The third one, or not?
Yes, we are. We are seeing the third one.
Yeah, perfect. And so in this occasion, we think also that we had to start to work on SDGs for different matters, because we knew that some schools were working at a policy level on SDGs. that some university rankings are working on SDG. They adopted SDG as a new evaluation parameter. So this involved policies of the universities. And we had the idea of some best practices in this domain. Example given the one of the School of Architecture in Copenhagen, that based all its education activity on the Sustainable Development Goals. And we were aware about the program of the UIA Congress of 2023 on sustainable futures and the work that the UIA was making. So we decided to open a survey and to organize some seminars about that. So those are some slides that explain a little bit in deep what is happening now in university rankings. This is the case of Times Higher Education that adopted the SDG 17 partnership for the goals as a term of evaluation of the universities in the domain of sustainability. And the other one is the QS ranking that's starting for 2022, adopt a series of SDGs as parameter to label the different activities of the universities, not just the teaching, but also the research activity, because it starts from the consideration of the quotation, and so at the Elsevier Chival. So we decided to start with organizing seminars in 2021, just to better explain the EAE is structured in this way. We have an education academy, a research academy, and a conservation network that are three, as can I say, think tank in which the professor can meet and discuss topics and making comparison about experiences in the domain of teaching and research. And so we had a SDG series. We started on a very wide topic, that is how to localize SDGs in education and research in the university. Then we had a meeting of the conservation network, so related to the topic of restoration and conservation and how to consider this topic in relationship with the heritage. Then we had a meeting with discussing the experience in teaching with Lene Dam and Lund of so with the experience of the Danish Academy of Architecture of Copenhagen. Then we had also tried to define some relationship between the new European Bauhaus focus and policies and the use of the SDGs. And then now there are some ongoing initiative. The first one is another symposium that will take place during the next week at TU Delft, and is a symposium around circular education and SDGs. And then we have the survey that is open now. We are collecting using a question as the different experience in the different associated school of architecture, the European School of Architecture. And we have a goal to collect around November 30 a relevant number of cases, and then to make a report. Also, we hope in time with the UIA Congress on this topic. We hope to have time to do. So this is an inquiry. I show you what we are asking to the school, something about institutions' policies. Those are the questions. And so we ask if the university have a policy and how it implement the SDGs. We have to remember that this is not just related to teaching and research, but also to campus life, in fact, and to the structure of the campuses from the architectural point of view and their relationship with the city. So if the university adopt policies, for example, defining new building or restoring the campus, on trying to make more sustainable campuses. Then about the teaching, we ask if the school is committed to meaningful education around the SDGs in the program in an official way, and which are the methodologies that are adopted to do that, and which is the methodology for verifying and mapping the expected learning outcomes. And also we have a goal about that with the school to also to discover some hidden initiative around SDGs, because maybe schools are working around sustainability, but they are not ready from the point of view of the internal policies of talking about SDGs, but in fact there are experiences that are close to the use of the SDGs. The same type of questions are around the research topics. And then we have a second part, second form, in which we ask which are the most significant research or educational issues on SDGs. And so we ask samples of studios, of courses, of researchers, and we ask to send us these samples. So this is briefly we are in the middle of the survey, but we have some results that maybe could be. We have for the moment 22 universities that answered, and we had some answers around some questions. Example given, we at the moment we have about the 60% of those universities that have official policies around SDGs, other that have not fully policies around, and other that have no policies. And this is related to the universities, and this one is interesting because it's related to the School of Architecture, and so we can say that maybe School of Architecture are the more involved inside the universities around the topic of the SDGs and of sustainability. And this is just around the SDGs that are more involved in the teaching and in research. And so, and there are enough logic if we think about related to the teaching and research in architecture, because we have the goal 3, good health and well-being, goal 11, of course, sustainable cities and communities, goal 12, responsible consumption and production, and climate action, and also affordable and clean energy, that in fact are topic that are at the core of the discussion around architectural design nowadays. So and then we have some ideas about the typology of the shape of the teaching. We know that in design studios are involved in this type of experiment. There are the more important type of teaching that is involved, and then we have also other issues as students' competitions, for example, a workshop or guest lectures or cross-disciplinary events, teaching modules, so also courses that are related to design studio, etc. Then the school are involved in and promote SDGs initiatives, the School of Architecture, and then there is the list. We tried to have a look to the goals that are more used in this case. And then the last question is about the research evaluation, if the SDGs are adopted as evaluation criteria for the research. And this seems to be now is ongoing. If I have to say something about this result, it seems to be maybe teaching is more advanced at the moment that research evaluation in this case. And then we will have some samples that we want to show then in the final report. So the next steps is to completing the inquiry and then editing the report, as I say. So we are in the middle of our work, and probably to organize other meetings and other seminars around the SDGs. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Ilaria, for this very practical presentation. You gave us another side of the webinar focus. We have another part for the first question about the bamboo. Sang already answered, but I was wondering if Elizabeth also would like to add to the answer. The participant was asking about the number of years that we can consider that bamboo material are structurally sound. Sang gave us an idea of this material.
I think I will defer to Sang because he has in the field experience, but I will say that there are examples that I have seen in the Philippines that are actually 80 years old, but those are then traditionally built. And so there are reasons why that material over time, just because of the way that it's been grown, it doesn't last as long as maybe traditional examples might be. So yeah, treatment is necessary.
Thank you, Elizabeth. We also have a comment, not a question, from Yves Mouni. He was wondering about the vocational training in this debate, if it's that important to involve architects and engineers through sustainability, for example, integrating SDGs within their designs and projects. So he also was pointing that the Agenda 2030 is near, and we have a tight schedule on that professionals being in the front line. I can see Ilaria's hand raised. Ilaria?
Yes, it's around bamboo. I would like to quote the work by Yasmin Lari in Pakistan. We at Politecnico Milano, we gave her an honoris causa, a laurea honoris causa, and she is making a very important work related to teaching to the population how to build their houses with bamboo, also for contrast some climate effects as flows and so on. And so to reconstruct villages, she teaches to the local population, especially to women, to how to rebuild their communities using bamboo, and it's a fantastic work. And so I suggest you to have a look to her work now. Now she is visiting in Cambridge, and there are some exhibitions also that are around Europe of her work.
Thank you, Ilaria. I was informed by the UIA Secretariat that Jose Luis, the UIA president, is trying to connect. But anyway, before giving him the word, I would like to briefly have a wrap-up of the webinar. It was really interesting. I say it personally, and I'm sure that every participant shared the same opinion. Let me start by Anna, who started by defining innovation through her experience and attempt through the Global Studio and 3 other projects. She was focusing on the SDGs and the new urban agenda, especially, of course, the goal number 11. She was also investigating a number of ideas. For example, the first one, the participatory process design professionals can partner with their communities. She gave us the importance of giving people a voice that must be heard and considered as a driving factor in design and building. And finally, she was demonstrating the necessity of working together with multidisciplinary teams and showing some examples of educational projects. Secondly, Professor Ashraf was giving us the concept and key criteria of the last cycle in order to go on with the new cycle. He went through some of the entries and the awarded programs in different UIA regions with different backgrounds and results. He explained new methods of innovation in architectural education and what is unique about the second edition of the award. While our 2 winners or awardees, Elizabeth and Song, went through their course and seminars, their work. Elizabeth, her course is related to her research focusing on sustainable materials. She was explaining how to build from tradition in the framework of contemporary architecture using natural building materials. She introduced students to more sustainable materials and traditional systems from all backgrounds, not only her local students, but ironically, international students find it very interesting as well. She raised the question that history and science and practice over time is very important in implementing SDGs within the course. While Song introduced some important holistic thinking and cooperation with the local population, he went through the examples of site surveys, meeting locals with specific cultural backgrounds in China, and even using online communication in the pandemic period to communicate with these users. He gave us examples of the harmony between the nature and the local community. His students continued working in the field after finishing their educational course. He also was experiencing the reuse of building materials and asked local villagers to be partners in constructing their own buildings in a participatory approach. Ilaria gave us another side related to the European Association for Architectural Education on embedding the SDGs. She was demonstrating its relation to the international university ranking in different universities in Europe, while organizing seminars in 2021 and how to localize SDGs in educational research in European universities. She also showed us the results of questionnaires related to the institution's policy, teaching, and research. I thank you all for your participation, your time and effort devoted to our project, and look forward to another contribution from your side in another part of the awards. I'm not sure if we have the president ready now. May I ask Muyati and Martin?
Unfortunately, no, we're still waiting.
I'm sure that he wanted to welcome you all and to
Hold on.
encourage us.
Just give me one minute, please.
Okay. I also thank all the participants and remind you that the YouTube channel of the UIA will have shortly the recordings as soon as possible.
Yes.
Okay, we have the
Hello,
president.
Iman. Hello. Oh, hello
Mr.
everybody.
President.
It's very
Hello.
nice to see all of you.
It's a pleasure to have
you
you.
hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we
hear me?
can. We can. Yes, we can, Mr. President.
So, on the name of the International Union of Artists, I want to congratulate all of you. I want to thank all of you for this webinar, and all your presentations are very valuable for UIA. And I'm sure this topic about awards is very important for the future. So you are helping UIA to settle all the basis for to build a better, world where reaching all the topics related to sustainable development. So I wish that we can have more meetings in the future. And I apologize because this time I had too many other meetings and I couldn't join you in the whole webinar.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's a pleasure to have you even at the end. And I would like also to thank again our presenters and our participants.